I drive my car up to the lake as if there's someone to awake. I haven't been to bed for days, I live in a twilight haze. And I set my heart to the setting sun, and I hope that no one else has done it. And the drinks are never far, open up the bar. I miss you every single day. I wait until I'm on your way. I hate the way I'm straight.
Word of the day. You could start any podcast with word of the day.
Yeah, Googling your name, Tim.
Yeah.
Scanning through.
Good to see you done the background.
Just stick with videos. Yeah. Hey, oh well. So, startups. Startups is... so you have a business called Blerb. Speaking of Blerb, which I have here. Just tell us a little snippet of what it is, because Milton, I don't think I've told you what it is at all, have I?
No, you haven't, no.
Oh, you're in for a ride. I don't even
great.
know. Geez, where do I start? Okay. So Blerb started about 3.5 years ago. We packed in our day jobs, but the idea of Blerb started probably 6 or 7 years ago. And so my background, I'm a writer.
Yep.
And I've been in the sort of the creative writing, advertising, marketing and that kind of stuff. And as a side hustle, I'd been writing real estate agents' ads for them.
Yeah.
And I'd written thousands of these things. And then I met a young developer called Jared Salmon, and we hit it off. And the idea for Blerb was born. And the original Blerb was an ad writing tool for real estate agents. So there's a big pool, a big library of content, and they jump in there and they type in a handful of keywords about the property. You know, it's a villa, it's in good school zones, it's perfect for families, whatever. Mm-hmm. And the system searches through the library and builds them this ad, and they can edit it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
15 minutes later, they've got this ad that feels like it's been written by a professional writer.
Yeah.
So that was the original Blerb. And then once we were sort of into things, it evolved a little bit, and we found some gaps in the market and some niches. We're actually on our third product now. We're about to launch our third product.
Oh, right.
So the second product was Blerb Social.
Yep.
And that's a social media tool for real estate agents as well.
Yep.
And then launching 15th of January next year is Content Pigeon.
Oh, right.
Which is the essence of Blerb Social, but not just for real estate agents, for everyone in the world in any industry.
Oh, okay.
So,
man, Tim, that's impressive. And isn't it interesting when you get into a business and you've got a direction, and then for whatever reason or somehow those things, you notice those other areas that you can kind of, hey, I thought I was going to go in this direction, but in actual fact, there's a great potential over here.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the things I'm most proud about. I mean, look, by no means have we cracked it yet.
No.
But after a fairly unusual 3.5 years, especially over the last 24 months, we're still here, we're still in the fight. And I think a big part of that is having been agile and been open-minded about stuff.
Yeah.
Because when we started, I thought the original idea was the greatest idea ever.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have done it, right? Like,
yeah.
We wouldn't have packed in our day jobs. And I left my proper job a month after we'd had our fourth child.
Yeah.
So it was, we're pushing all our chips in, but I obviously had a lot of faith in it. Mm-hmm. So I'm proud of the fact that we managed to recognise that, as the whole idea evolved and our knowledge grew, that there were some other opportunities that were potentially better, and that we backed ourselves to explore them. Yeah.
That's because that initial risk, you kind of think, sweet, the risk is over, I'm committed, and you're heading down this road. And then as you drive down the road, new avenues kind of open up. And you're like, oh, hang on a minute, shall I turn down there? Yeah,
100%. And I think being able to, like I say, just staying open to those things.
Yeah, and not just, be so narrow-minded that you would just drive straight past.
Yeah. Which is hard because you've got to have focus as well. So it's like, how do you stay focused, but also, how do you stay focused on a goal, but also willing to accept other opportunities as they come at you? And I guess it's just about weighing up each opportunity as it comes and thinking, hey, is that actually...
And does it have something also, does it align with your passion type of thing? Is there something that you've, like, do you have an internal kind of, compass that is sort of helping you make those decisions? Because some people heavily rely on their passion. I perhaps never have, and I feel like I should have more.
Yeah, look, I really like what I'm doing. I don't know if it aligns with my passion. I don't know if, if I won Lotto tomorrow.
It's just a random word.
well, look, if I won Lotto tomorrow, I don't know if I'd...
Yeah.
And my life's goal would be to create a marketing tool.
No.
It'd be more along, I don't know, being an artist or being a musician or something
Is
funky
that right?
like that.
Oh, yeah.
But I do really like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And there's, there's kind of an energy and an excitement that comes from being a startup and trying to build something from the ground up.
Yeah. That is cool. And 3.5 years probably coincides with when Pilgrim started as well.
Tell you a story about that.
Winter of something or other. Yeah.
It coincides exactly because...
It does.
We'd so I just got a little office just around the corner.
Yeah.
And I remember we'd been here a couple of weeks and I was catching up with a mate for a cuppa and we were walking down here. I think we were probably going down the road for a coffee and walked past here and saw that the door was open and came in.
Yeah.
And it was the day before you guys opened and you were just trying out all the stuff.
Right.
And we got you shouted us a coffee just because you
cool.
wanted to try out the machines
nice
and things
one.
like that. So, and ever since popping in here has been part of my morning ritual.
Oh, classic, Tim. I don't even think I was aware of that.
Yeah. We walked in, we're like, you guys open? And you're like, not really, but we're trying to...
We would have probably been
Figuring
pretty
everything
nervous. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you were 3 weeks into it.
Yeah. Like we
man.
just started as well. So it's...
you would
this
have loved
place
it.
has
You
been
would have
part of
been
my
like-
journey.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's real cool to hear.
You had me at free coffee.
Yeah, true. That first day. Well, that was like -1.
Yeah,
Negative day
-1.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so that's cool. So, and at the moment, you're just by yourself in Christchurch. You're the only one in the office, or you got someone else working for you?
So Jared's up in Auckland. And then we've got a full-time staff member who's based in Northland. We've got a part-time staff member in Wellington.
Yep.
And then I've got this girl, Justine, who is sort of our graphic designer. She just contracts to us. She does her own thing, but she comes and hangs out with me in the office and keeps me company, and she's cool. So
you must have put a lot of this. You start up a business, and it's like, did you do a lot of this yourself to begin with? Like, you were doing every single job. You were creating things, or were you quite good at contracting people in and outsourcing from your previous job?
yeah, look, you kind of got to do it all yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're still doing it. We're still doing so much of it ourselves.
Yeah.
And there's definitely parts of the business that I would have someone else doing if we had the resources to have those people on board.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to when we grow to that next stage and we can bring people in.
Yeah.
But there's a reality to doing this kind of stuff as well. I don't feel like naturally I was a salesperson.
Yeah.
That stuff's never really, I guess the kind of the image you have in your mind of a quintessential salesperson and a real hard closer and that kind of stuff has never come easily to me.
No.
Yeah. But the reality is when you're starting something new that people want to talk to the business owner and that they want to hear your passion for your product.
Yep.
And no one's going to know it, especially in those early days. No one's going to know it as well as you do.
True.
So, some of that stuff you've just got to grit your teeth and get used to doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true. It's I know what you mean. Sales is quite a hard thing. I think, but I do think it's the way the salesperson, like you say, there's that sort of image or that iconic kind of thing that you imagine. But in actual fact, in reality, if someone can talk to the business owner, I think that customer comes away feeling like they've had an authentic exchange and they haven't been sort of sold something Like, yeah, sort of, I don't know, in a way that's more, you know, they're happy with making that transaction.
Well, sales is just authenticity is a good word for it, and trust and relationships, eh?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So, but yeah, it's been an interesting ride.
Yeah, and the whole technology stuff, like how it just populates those ads.
Yeah.
That's like a sort of based on some kind of algorithm-y type.
Yeah. And I mean, that space is evolving really quickly as well. The further you get into AI and the smarter technology's getting, the more potential there is for tools like Blerb. No one's cracked it quite yet, though. There's quite a few AI ad writing tools out there.
Yeah.
But they're still not, I try each and every one of them when they come out on the market, and I still haven't found one that is good enough to put in front of someone, you know, if I was a business owner and I was writing an ad with it.
Gee.
I still wouldn't quite use it, but it's getting close.
Yeah.
It's spooky.
I quite often hear the ad on YouTube with a guy talking, and then he reveals that he's in actual fact a computer, and you know, this is my voice and this is what I sound like, and I can put in the intonations that are needed and required to sound good or whatever.
Yeah.
Every so often there's an ad that kind of captures my attention. and you're working alongside, are you working in a hub of other startups, or is it just yourself?
It's just I'm in a shared office, but I've got my own space. So when I was looking for some, because, you know, like I say, I've got thousands of children at home, so there was no opportunity for me to work from home.
Yeah.
Unless it's an imposed lockdown. But I checked out a few of those the open plan working hubs, and it was just a bit too full on for me. There was just, there was just funky cats with gigantic headphones like this cruising around everywhere and stuff. And I thought, geez, I hang out here and just get caught up talking to people all day.
Yeah.
And never get anything done. So, it was a bit of a shock to the system because I came from working in creative agencies and advertising agencies. So, the last place I worked at, we had 50 people in this gigantic open plan office, and you constantly got people coming at you, and you're constantly having different meetings and collaborating and stuff, and all of a sudden I'm in this little office by myself. But I mean, realistically, I don't know if I ever see us having a gigantic office, even if we get really big now. And the ability for people to work from home in their own space and to their own schedule is pretty powerful. And that's something I've learned to lean into a little bit as well. So I've realised over time that I'm much better in the mornings than I am in the afternoons, for instance.
Right, yeah.
Whereas Jared's a real night owl.
Yep.
So Jared does a lot of his best work at 11 o'clock at night or midnight. And so, you know, if I had have said to him, or he had have said to me, you know, you've got to change the way you work. If I'd have said to him, you know, we're both got to be at our computers at 8 a.m. and work there till 5 p.m.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have got the best out of him. And likewise, I know that I'm really good until about midday. I do my best creative thinking then.
Yeah.
And then the afternoon's sort of grunt work.
I've read something where it said, holding off from making decisions late at night or at the end of the day, hold them off till the next morning, and kind of plan them into the day to make them first thing in the morning, because they think that is more of a they think that's you're going to make a better decision for whatever reason. You might be more alert, or you might be considering other factors and things like that.
There's definitely something to be said for sleeping on stuff, eh?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
in the middle of the night, you can.
Whether it's emails or just a creative content. Yeah. Coming back the next day, or even a couple of days later, re-looking at it with fresh eyes.
Well, it's funny, you know, having worked in the creative space for so long. It's funny the way that works, because you can chase an idea. And the harder you chase it, the further it gets away from you.
Oh, I see. Yep.
So often, you know, you're sitting down and you've got 10 days to crack an idea for a campaign, for instance. And you start off full of energy and you're chasing it, and you've got half an idea but you can't quite nail it. and then you move on from it, or you go home, you're in the shower, or you wake up in the middle of the night and it's just sitting there in your head. And it's almost like you need to forget about it and you need to let all the other bullshit in your head get out of the way for it to come to the front.
Yep.
So it's an interesting process.
Yeah, that's true. Creativity. Yeah, it is. It's a bit of a mystery, but nevertheless, I mean, it captures so many people. Everyone has a sort of a creative streak in them,
100% they do.
So everyone's kind of tapping into that in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and like I don't think anyone does that stuff alone as well.
No,
you know, I think you can be a creative genius, but you still need input from other people.
a bit of yep.
No one has all the answers to things.
Yeah.
So I think the more you can be confident in your own ideas, but also open to the input from others.
Yeah, that's a real skill. Yeah, yeah. I enjoy that. I enjoy that more and more these days. Yeah. Looking at things develop and change. Yeah, that's cool. Oh wow, 4 children, eh? and what are the age ranges? I mean, I've got 2 kids.
Yeah. So Nova's 9, Ivy's 7, Sylvie's coming up 6 in a week, and George is 3.5. So 3 girls and then a wee boy.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, it's cool.
That's incredible. Yeah,
it's noisy.
Yeah. It's so hard because I do work from home with Sammy bags in the garage, and the kids are constantly sneaking in.
Yeah.
And I just can't, shut the door and and even if I do, they still knock on the door. So now I just leave it open and they have that kind of freedom. But it can be challenging at times.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were making mud pies yesterday out on the step. Which is okay. It's the step I walk over like quite often.
Yeah, I mean, look, my wife's a machine, so coming to work's definitely the easy part of it.
Yeah,
cleaning up the mud pies and
right.
just controlling them all. Making sure everyone survives the day and lives to see another one.
Yeah,
that's the big challenge.
Yeah. Oh wow! And now since you've been coming in here, we've got to know you a little bit, and one of the curious things about yourself, Tim, is that your eyesight is slowly diminishing.
Yeah. And,
or did it drop off a cliff?
No, it hasn't dropped off a cliff. So I've got a degenerative disease called retinitis pigmentosa.
Right.
It's a big word. There'll be a quiz later on. And so I was born with it. It's a genetic thing, but I didn't start noticing it until I was in my mid-teens, probably. So,
right.
So I first read it here with essentially with night blindness, and it sort of, when it came on, sort of coincided with when me and my mates were starting to explore going out and having a couple of beers and things like that.
Yep.
And I just noticed that, take me into a dark bar or take me into Hagley Park for classical sparks or things like that, and it was just chaos. I had no idea where I was going. So yeah, I mean, I've probably lived with it for close to 30 years now.
Okay.
And I'm quite lucky. It's progressing relatively slowly. Mm-hmm. So it will continue to progress. But, I'm really lucky at the moment that I can still get around. And a lot of people don't really know that I've got anything like that going on.
No, definitely not.
So the main things for me are I'm no good at night time.
Yeah.
And I've essentially got no peripheral vision.
Oh, okay.
So I'm prone to walking into things and making a bit of a dick of myself on a daily basis.
Yeah. There might be an assumption like you're just drunk or...
100%. 100%. There's, to a degree, it's almost like you're not blind enough. If you had a cane or you're walking with a guide dog and you fall over something, people come and help you. You're just walking along the street and you walk into a rubbish bin or something.
People cross the street.
In front of a bunch of kids or something. You're not getting any help. You're just getting laughter as you walk or dust yourself off and walk into the distance. But but it probably toughens you up a little bit. It's probably,
Gee.
it's probably helped me in the startup world as well. It's probably made me a little bit more resilient.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Putting yourself up there and having a deal with.
How do you take medication, or is there natural supplements you're able to kind of get into, or any therapy, or?
No, not really. The interesting stuff that's happening, probably the most interesting stuff is stem cell therapy. That'll be the big hope for me in this kind of space, and it's not there yet, but that technology is moving pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So, that's probably, if there's a cure out there.
How would they, I don't know anything about that, how would they sort of implement that in someone's life who has this condition?
I don't know much about it either.
Yeah.
But, essentially what's happening in the back of my eyes is that my rods are dying.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess fundamentally at its most basic, stem cell therapy would breathe new life into them.
Ah, right.
Potentially encourage them to grow again.
Yeah.
And geez, I might have got that completely wrong, but I think that's
all right.
I think that's essentially what stem cells are doing, right? Is kind of regenerating growth and
okay, true,
and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they might use that in spinal injuries and things.
100%. I think they're doing some exciting stuff on that. It gives you a different perspective on life as well. I mean, everyone's dealing with stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. And when, like, I had a sore back a couple of weeks ago, which probably sounds quite trivial.
Sore back's terrible.
Nevertheless, there's that kind of your health. We all take it for granted, and then it gets taken away. And boy, oh boy, you really notice that type of thing.
Well, it's all relative to what you're going through as well, right?
Yeah.
You're sitting there and you've got a sore back, and there's hundreds of millions of starving children in Africa, and that's awful.
Yeah.
But, in the heat of the moment, you're getting up and you've got a bloody sore back and you're trying to... So it still sucks. It doesn't... Just because someone's worse off than you and you know it doesn't mean it doesn't suck.
That's right.
It still sucks to have a sore back.
Oh, it's intense. And then, of course, you're thrown into this world of... such a specific kind of... You do all this research sometimes when you fall ill. That's my alarm. That's just telling me to wake up. I don't even know where my phone is. It should stop after a minute, but just... has it been a minute?
Must be getting there.
Sorry, I turn your mic down when you're not talking, Milton, which is pretty much most of the time. I'll grab it. Have you got a question, Milton?
Yeah, why'd you leave your alarm on? What's going on?
You guys run a tight ship
I'm
here.
away. So,
I feel a bit disconnected over here. Man, it's super interesting what you're talking about, Tim.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if it is really.
Oh, it's damn interesting. Well, I think it is.
yeah, well, we forget that... well, it's not that we forget, but, a lot of people just have a job, they go to it, they complete it, and they kind of go home. But with a startup, you're probably thinking about it all the time. Yeah,
100%. 100%. And I think, I've got this little kind of mantra in my head that it's, and it started off as, it's all about me, the M and the E. So the M's momentum and the E is energy.
Yeah.
So I think when we started, one of the things I'm grateful that we did, and we didn't realise we were doing it at the time, but we kept up momentum. So, like 6.5, 7 years ago when we started talking about it, it would have been really easy to have this idea, in the kitchen of the place we were working at the time, and then talk about it a couple of times and then drift off and revisit it a year later or whatever. Even though it was only half an idea at that time, and we were juggling lots of other stuff with our proper jobs and stuff, we kept momentum up to a degree. We kept coming back and trying to step forward and step forward and step forward. Even if there was a 2 or 3 week period in between when we caught up and when we made any progress, we kept moving. And then I think,
you were chipping away, eh?
we kept chipping away,
Yeah.
and we didn't let that drop off.
Yeah, and I think that's. I think, Milton, you've mentioned it before. There's an assumption, or there's a thought that people are overnight successes, and they, especially with Instagram or social media these days, you see a post and it just pops up out of nowhere, but you don't realise all of the work and weeks or potentially months that have gone into to create that result.
100%,
Like we've just released a new product.
Yeah.
Is that person didn't just think of it. It took them 6 months or a year to to develop it and get it to the point where they can just sort of press, post.
It was kind of like a band, right? Like a band of some, a bunch of young 22-year-olds, all of a sudden they're all over the radio and you think overnight success. But, they probably started playing their instruments when they were 9 and they've been grinding away and they've been in 5 different bands at school and
that's right.
they've had all sorts of kids make fun of them for what they do and they've had to come back again and again and learn to be resilient and learn and, grow that confidence, and they've probably been working on all these songs for years and years and years. And yes, maybe they've just been discovered, but it doesn't, they didn't sit down and write that album 3 weeks ago and it's just, gone nuts. So, yeah, there's a lot of work behind it, but I think the second bit of it, I think, is how much you can get up each morning and go again with a positive attitude.
Yeah. Is that the E, sorry?
That's the E. The E is that energy.
Energy, yeah.
Because it is contagious, I think, and it rubs off on the people you're working with and on the clients you're trying to talk to. But when you put everything on the line, you're packing your job and you try something like that, as you'll know with starting this place and Sammy Bags, there's that weight of pressure on your shoulders and it's always kind of threatening to bring you down. You have a day at work where a couple of clients cancel their subscriptions, or you have a bad meeting, or you get some bad feedback from an investor or whatever, and it can totally derail your day. And the big thing is, can you wake up the next morning and if not actually put it aside, pretend to put it aside and put a smile on your face and come back in with some energy that's going to inspire those around you and drive you forward. So that's that's the me and the E, and then there's kind of an A and a T to it, and I just realised the other day that now it's all about the meat. But I think, like the other bits to that are agility and time. So the agility is what we talked about at the start, which was, as focused as you want to be, you've also got to stay open-minded. And maybe that's a little thing like being open to feedback from clients. Hey, this could be better, or if it did this, it'd be amazing. Or it might be a big shift, like we did with Blerb to Blerb Social to Content Pigeon, where you go, okay, there's actually a better product here that we should lean into a little bit more.
Yeah.
So that's the agility. And then the time, I think, is cherishing your time, because, you guys will know there's not enough hours in a day to have.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Cherishing your time, like, that's kind of across the board, right? Like in personal and work.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because, everyone's chasing this idea of balance.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know. I don't think there's an answer to what that looks like. It's an individual thing.
Yep.
But it's pretty hard to find time to achieve something cool in business, look after your health.
Yeah.
While doing the most important things in life, which are
Yeah.
nurturing your relationships and being there for your kids
Yeah.
and your family and that kind of thing.
Oh, that's very true.
So I think for me it was about going, the last thing I want to do with a young family is be working 16 hours in my little office 5 days a week.
Yeah.
So it's about going, okay, where's that window where I'm at my absolute best, and cherish that and make sure that I'm all my ducks are in a row and I can just smash stuff then. And then, okay, after that time fades, now what's the most productive thing I can do to keep us moving forward? and then get to a point where I can shelve that for the day,
Yeah.
go home and see the kids. And
Man, you sound like you've really thought this out, and you kind of have a bit of a plan, even relating to that sort of thing. Or has it just kind of materialised?
yeah, I don't know if I've thought it out.
Yeah,
But I'm interested in it. So
yeah.
and I think the older I get, the better I get at self-reflecting.
Yeah.
And at learning the lessons as I experience them.
Yeah, you're seeing the benefit in that and how it can help you. I think, because self-reflecting when you're younger is perhaps, I don't want to say it's a completely different animal, but it could be, it may be a lot different as to when you get it slightly older. You're seeing it perhaps in a more positive manner and a way, hey, how can I learn lessons?
Yeah.
And better myself and better things, yeah.
And I guess it's part of that kind of journey of life that you get frustrated that you didn't know it when you were younger. But I just think, there's that kind of that innocence you need when you're younger to explore life as well.
Yeah, exactly.
There's probably...
Well, there's so many beneficial attributes of youth, and, jumping in sometimes without considering all the consequences.
100%.
Because that, I don't know. And there are a number of, I don't know, can't really think of them now, getting too old. But I'm sure there are. I wrote a list. I need an acronym. Tony, our last guest, coming from the military, he has acronyms all over the place, doesn't he? PGAV.
He does.
That's a good one.
What does the PGAV stand for?
PGAV. Okay, now you put me on the spot. Positive self-talk.
Yeah.
Positive self-talk.
Goal setting.
The visualization.
Yep. That's the visualization. Would be the last one.
And the A. Is that the affirmations?
Is that positive affirmation?
Anyway, it's like healthy visualization, just healthy mental processes.
It's to do with mental toughness, I think. It is. It's mental toughness.
Yeah.
But I've forgotten one of them. Yeah, but they help you kind of get through adversity, keeping your positive self-talk up. And one of the examples he gave was on one of his first... I shouldn't really be telling his stories like they're mine, but when he was kind of out in the field and on one of his first missions, and an enemy being on top of a mountain and stuff like that, and just it was going to take quite a large amount of time, 12 hours or longer or something, and within a couple of hours he was sort of struggling physically and perhaps mentally and stuff like that, and the leader came over and said, you can do this, you've done it before, blah 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 blah, and it's just like totally getting rid of those negative thoughts, and so that was the positive self-talk, I suppose.
I guess it's that just honing down your attention to what you need to do, and then when all the crap comes in, kind of knowing how to get out of it, which is like the me, just having it short and tight. It's got so much content in those two letters. The motivation and the energy.
Yeah. And that's purely like there's the physical side of doing a job, and then there's the mental, there's kind of the practical sort of side, the nuts and bolts, and then there's this mental game, which kind of also provides a balance. But you just can't afford to let it just be go wherever it wants. Yeah.
Well, I think there's that self-belief, and it's something that I think a lot of New Zealanders struggle with. I don't know, it might be a global thing, but you look on TV and you see these, every time an American gets in front of the cameras, it's like they were born to do it kind of thing. Even if they're just being interviewed in a news clip or something, it's like they were born to do it. When you see a Kiwi in front of a camera and they're kind of nervous and reserved and stuff like that. And so I think, a lot of us get that imposter syndrome sometimes, and you're like...
Correct. Yeah. We literally are like the Kiwi birds in the dark and poking our little beaks out.
100%.
Oh my God, I just realised
that's a great analogy.
Cripes.
Yeah.
It's quite frightening.
Like it can be... I can cruise into my little office and be in my own little space and jeans and trainers one day, and then the next day you're in a boardroom with a blazer on presenting to the senior management team at a big company that you're trying to land, and you can halfway through it all of a sudden you're like, geez, do I actually know what I'm talking about here, or am I just bluffing my way through it?
So far, so good. That's how I feel about the podcast. Like not that specific one, but just any time as soon as you put the earphones in or on, I said to Corrington the first time, it's like an out of body experience. And I kind of said that without even knowing what I was saying, but I really find it is kind of like that sometimes. I feel
it's a little bit freaky, but once you sort of jump into it and start, you must be have at least some periods of comfortability when you're just sitting there and talking.
Oh, yeah.
Nah, it all sucks. I'm panicking the whole time.
Look, even accomplished stars and, everyone feels nerves and self-doubt. Everyone's just normal. Everybody's just like us. We're all the same.
Yeah.
So we all have to deal with these, the negative terrain and knowing how to get out of it. And it's like you said with the momentum, the people who can't do that, they just stop, and the momentum stops, the energy stops, and 3 years from now, we're just back. We're still at the same place we were 3 years ago.
Well, time goes by quickly, eh?
Yeah. But if we don't know how to get out of that quagmire.
Yep. And look, a lot of the time you don't feel like you're actually going anywhere. But at least if you get up the next day and you keep trying, stuff's eventually going to happen. If you get up one day and you have a crack at something and it doesn't work and you just give it up and you're back to whatever wasn't working for you in life.
Yeah.
And look, it's easier said than done, and that's true. That's more true for some people. But I think, fundamentally, if you're working towards something, and look, some of that naivety at the start's really important too. Like with your starting the podcast, for instance.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't know 100% what you were going to do, or how, or where you get your equipment from, or what some of the intricacies were going to be, and what some of the challenges would have been. If you had a thought about all those at the start, you probably never would have embarked on doing it.
Yeah. And you hear that all the time, don't you?
Yeah.
If I knew what I knew now, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing.
And that's the beauty of youth that we're talking about, or the youthfulness, or the beginning of the project.
Yeah.
Like that naivety contains the self-belief and the faith.
Yeah.
That, hey, this is probably going to be okay, let's just go for it.
That's it. When we launched Blerb, I didn't think it was going to be easy, but I thought it was going to be a lot quicker than it was. And we'd had plenty of people tell us, most startups are going to fail within 12 months and all those kind of stats.
That's encouraging.
And you can't escape that kind of stuff. But I had so much faith in what we were doing, and I still believe in that first product, even though it's sort of, to a degree, gathering dust a little bit at the moment while we focus on these other ideas. But I believed in it so much, and I was so sure in my own mind that as soon as we released it to the world, it was just going to go gangbusters.
Yeah.
And the reality was that it didn't pan out like that. But if I had sat down and thought, okay, well, it's going to take you 3.5 years to even have solidified the right idea you should be chasing. I don't know if you ever take the leap.
Are you able to identify what like from your original perspective, you obviously had a little bit of an equation and the reasons as to why it was going to go gangbusters and then it didn't. Are you able to identify that it was potentially was it a matter of educating your customers and sort of they were just completely obviously unaware?
I think one of the things when you're starting a business of any kind is you've got to be solving a problem. And I think potentially with our first product, the problem's there, but people don't necessarily recognise it. So, it was a tool for real estate agents to help them write their ads.
Yeah.
And they all get their ads written one way or the other. Like some of them struggle with it, and some of them might spend 2 hours they can't spare writing it, and some of them hate doing it. But they all manage to get it done one way or the other. So it wasn't like the problem was right in their face. If I don't have Blerb or a solution like that, I just cannot get my ad written. It wasn't that overt.
They were managing.
They were managing.
Yep.
Whereas where we've got to now with Content Pigeon, which we launched January 15th, is that we're solving a real pain point. Every time I talk to someone, they're like, "Oh my God, that's my problem. That's basically what causes me the most strife each and every day.
Yeah.
I need this now." So I think that was what slowed us down at the start. Was we had this great product, and I still believe in it, and it's smart, but there was such a process to selling it. It wasn't just sending it live, people sign up, start using it straight away. We actually had to make them recognise the problem first.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
and that's real hard being a leader, like in any particular field, and that whole educating, that process of education and letting people know why there's a problem, because it could come across, as that you're a hater of that particular idea. You guys aren't doing a very good job. You need me to help you out. You need this product to help you out and stuff like that. But to word it in a way that is, going to make them excited as you are about it. Yeah, looking at the flip side.
Yeah.
So you basically recognised a problem that people didn't even really know they quite had. It's almost like semi-conscious.
That's it. And look, it's still a problem, and I think, people agree it's a problem. It's not just real estate agents. I mean, it's a lot of people out there don't like writing, and they're not natural communicators. They're great at other stuff. Real estate agents, their strength mostly is relationships and people skills and being face-to-face with people and forging that connection. And they get stuck at their computer trying to write ads. It's not the best use of their time. But you're right. I had to actually show them it was a problem, rather than them sort of actively out there looking for a solution for it at the moment. Otherwise, if they didn't find a solution, I think couldn't happen. Yeah,
and humanity is full of that thing. Like we manage on so many levels with so many different things. Our garage door at home is broken, and I've got to work around with how I close it, which is basically just hanging off it and pulling it shut. But it's ridiculous. It's an obvious problem.
It's an obvious problem.
Yeah, but I kind of manage with it, and you bring it into your life, and it becomes a part of you.
Before you know it, that's just how you close doors in general.
Yeah, yeah. So it's understandable as to how and like the landscape that exists in a business sense, and trying to kind of penetrate that with a new product is like difficult.
I mean, it's providing such a relief for the people who they didn't even know this could be available, and now this tool's available. Man, what a relief! It's going to just streamline it.
And that's what I fiercely believed. But then you get into the reality that not everybody understands that necessarily straight away.
So that's a perception of value. The person is not perhaps
someone
coming around your house and saying, "I can fix your garage door," and you go,
nah. "No, mate, I've got it sorted."
That's right. I know how to do this.
I'm happy. Yeah, so it's a trade-off. Like, am I willing to trade X amount of dollars for someone to come and fix it, or am I willing to spend the time every time I shut it?
That's it.
Yeah.
So there's got to be. The problem's got to be that overt for them. It's got to be, they've got to recognise it, and it's got to be a real pain point for them. I think those are fundamentals to starting a new business.
Yep. Yeah.
I love how you navigate your life with, you've got like really clear words like pain point, momentum, energy. I like how it's honed down. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it's interesting. It kind of comes out all right, but Yeah, like I say, I've
You haven't just thought about it overnight. It's not an overnight, like we were talking before, the overnight
it's a bit
success.
like a slow
Yeah.
process of
Yeah.
creating
Yeah.
and becoming.
yeah, and
development.
learning, yeah. And some of that's probably having that creative brain. So I'm much more about trusting my gut instinct, and then learning the lessons from there and evolving and taking on board those lessons as they come at you, rather than kind of a real student of the game with a rock solid foundation of knowledge to build on, kind of thing.
Yeah. That's an exciting
Wow.
place to be, I reckon.
Yeah, same.
Because then, I think that's a good analogy. The sports person who's got all that foundation, and then they, when after all that practice and stuff, they just move into this flow state where things kind of are just happening, and they're almost, seeing ahead into the future, and kind of they're looking a few steps ahead of the game, and they're knowing things that the average spectator might not realise. And I think that also kind of ties into the mental health. We have an assumption that everyone's seeing things from the same perspective as we are, but in actual fact, under the surface, there's a whole load of underlying advantages and disadvantages, and ways of thinking that people have kind of encouraged.
Yeah, that stuff's really interesting, eh? I mean, you walk along the street and you can't help, as a human being, you can't help viewing things from your own perspective.
No.
And I think the mental health side of things is really interesting. I think there's been campaigns around the country over the last 5-10 years, and people like Mike King and other campaigners have done a really, really good job of saying to people, reach out for help, talk to your mates, talk to someone.
Yep.
The second piece of that puzzle, which I think is harder, is helping people recognise that someone's really struggling. If someone's suicidal or in a really low point with their mental health, they're not thinking rationally. They're not thinking, today I need to jump on the phone and call a mate because
yeah, that's right.
I'm thinking these bad thoughts.
Yeah.
So as much as we all understand we should reach out, when the shit hits the fan and you're deep down in one of those stages, people aren't, you're not thinking rationally like that. So the next piece of the puzzle is us all understanding those cues and what to look out for with the people around us, and trying to be proactive about how we help each other as well. Yeah,
and I suppose that's where the whole talk about it type of thing comes in to play. I read an article the other day criticising, talking about when people do finally reach out, some of the waiting lists they've got to experience. They sort of, and they were sort of suggesting that people aren't too bad at learning about reaching out in New Zealand. We're getting better at that, but when we finally do pick up the phone and say, look, I'm feeling really rubbish, I'm thinking of ending it all, they get popped on a waiting list for 6 months. Or it's just there's sort of a and I'm not saying that always happens, that was just something I read in the media and things, but there's so many different areas where things can break down. But I'm a big believer of relationships that people have, and like you say, sort of maintaining those relationships and just talking, like not always perhaps looking to a external source a million miles away, like in Wellington, like the government, and going, oh, I'm feeling suicidal, I'll ring up, the government hotline and find out what to do about it, kind of thing. It's I really feel like that whole it needs to be closer to home, and there's a bit of that kind of group. I don't know if it's a responsibility or whatever, but it's just community, isn't it? It's just life. Yeah.
Well, that's not a natural thing to want to do, to ring the 0800 number to talk about your feelings, is it? Like, that's got to be almost a last resort.
Yeah.
I think things have got so bad that I need to talk to a faceless person on the end of a phone to get me through this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, some people don't have that network around them.
No.
And they have no other choice. But
that's right.
But you're right. I mean, we kind of all have a responsibility to those around us.
Yeah, well, we're kind of, it's funnily enough, it's kind of sometimes I feel like there's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, or there's always appears to be unintended consequences to our good intentions. So we've set up all these different phone lines, we've done all the fundraising for it, we've raised millions of dollars, we've got all these youth lines and stuff, but that underlying message is still, call someone else. Don't talk to the person sort of sitting next to you or something like that. So, I'm not denying that we don't need those services, but, I do feel like it can be a little bit counterintuitive maybe. And I think maybe that comes from a place of fear and being, I don't know, we life is a precious thing, and how would I know how to talk someone off the edge of a cliff or something like that,
Yeah.
But the reality is, I think, I'm just speaking from experience with Sam, not that I take any credit for talking, I don't know. But, I think people in any situation, they appreciate, they don't care if you don't know what you're doing. Yeah.
And I'm really interested to see how the education system evolves to talk about this stuff and prepare people for it as well, because like I say, you're not in a rational space when you're in the depths of that stuff. So I think you invariably think that you are going nuts and that you're the only person in the world who's going through this at the moment, and that you've just lost the plot, as opposed to realising that the bulk of people have some sort of challenge around this stuff, and to some people it's just a little bit of self-doubt.
Yeah.
To other people it's full-blown deep depression, but everyone's going through some sort of, your brain is a crazy beast, and it's
that's right,
and it's talking to you and it's telling you all sorts of different stuff, whoever you are.
Funnily enough, what also ties into this is we had our little Christmas do the other day. Went out to, what are those rooms called? Escape room, and went out to dinner and things. And one of the people that we invited was talking about the parasympathetic nervous system. Is that correct? The parasympathetic nervous system?
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Good work.
And I think I'll get Erin on to kind of talk about it, because it's something to do with the flight, fight and freeze kind of thing, where, and often, I'm probably going to do a terrible job of explaining this, and she'll be able to explain it better, but it's that idea of someone who's perhaps in a really healthy position looking at someone in a very rational way and saying, why did you act that way? And they are just almost in a completely different mode that is uncontrollable to them. Yeah. They're operating on a real instinctual kind of, or in this sense, like a...
So they're in a completely different physiological state.
Yeah.
It's like worlds apart. It's like they're just, like you said, they're just not thinking rationally.
That's the next step in us all understanding how to help people, isn't it? It's one thing to say, hey, if you want to come to me and talk, I'm here. But it's another thing to actually realise that even though you've told them that 6 months ago, right now they've got all this turmoil going in, and they've convinced themselves that you don't want to talk to them, or they've convinced themselves that you don't care, or that you're too busy or whatever. And even if that's not true, it's understanding that...
Even if it is true, even if you are really busy, and even if you do have a family and kids, I think there's always kind of... people would make that extra effort to sort of talk and stuff. It's a real fascinating area, but it's good to have these talks.
100%.
Definitely. Yeah, remember like talking to people who are a little bit crazy, and it's like I realised, man, I've got no idea where they're coming from. I don't understand what planet they're on, but if I just stand there and listen, it seems to make me happier a wee bit. But there's no way I can interact with them with my life and try and give them advice or anything like that. So the best thing that I do is just listen to them and be their friend. So at least there's some sort of real connection going on, and they definitely seem to respond to that.
A connection's a good word, eh? I mean, it's that because when you have a connection with someone, you're feeling a sense of value.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like you're adding to someone's,
Yeah.
contributing to someone's life, and
Yep.
and you've got some sort of worth because someone's taking the time to stop and have a conversation with you.
Oh, totally. And you haven't. And then once again, if you pick up the phone, you know the person on the other end. Well, I was going to say they're paid to be there, kind of thing. Maybe they're a volunteer, but I mean, it's sort of there's a different dynamic.
A little bit more disconnected than talking with a person face to face, where you can can feel the warmth.
Yeah, I mean that's got to be the nature of that kind of system too, isn't it? I mean, how many times, if you were doing an 8-hour shift at one of those hotlines, how many times could you pick up the phone and genuinely engage and care? You know, you're picking up a call every 10 minutes to talk someone down.
Yeah.
I guess it's just human nature that the bulk of people doing that eventually end up on autopilot.
Oh, yeah.
I remember reading, I can't remember what the name of the book was called, but a homeless guy who was a heroin addict in London, and he ended up befriending this cat. And he had his last few coins, and the cat needed medical attention, and he decided to spend his last bit of money on getting this cat help. And they became best friends, and he would go out and panhandle each day. And eventually the cat started following him. He'd leave the cat in the house, but the cat started following him, so he just let the cat come with him. And now, because he had a cat beside him, people would give him more money. And his life just started going up a wee bit. He had more and more interaction with people that giving him money, and he'd become a little bit of a celebrity. And this whole cat thing ended up getting him out of being homeless. Like, he lives in a house now, and he's written a couple of books. But,
wow.
But I remember him saying, even if you can't give a homeless person some money, just say hi and say, how's your day going? He said that's like almost more important. It's like creating that connection. Otherwise they're just feeling alienated, and that's just brutal.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, because you walk past these people sitting on the street, and they're yelling out at each other across the side of the road and stuff like that, but you don't know what's going on for them. You don't know what challenges they're going. They're still people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like the cat story, I mean, you don't know what's going to make a difference to someone's life.
Yeah.
That little bit of kindness, or that little bit of, hey, I see you and you're a real person and you're worth something.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of people's experience. It's kind of like a bell curve. There are probably the outliers on either end, which are pretty hard out crazy, and quite difficult to relate to. But then, there's the bulk of people kind of perhaps in the middle and things. But I think, I think that reaching out and not knowing, having all the answers and stuff like that, I think there is kind of power in that, because you got to remember they're in a position where they don't really know what's going on either.
Yeah.
And if we're constantly trying to present, or if they're constantly coming across professionals who make out that they know what's going on and perhaps not finding the answers, I don't think there's any harm in meeting someone who doesn't sort of, I don't know, sort of know what's going on either. It's a crazy idea.
I just found that the cat is called, there's a film out now, it's called A Street Cat named Bob.
A street cat named
I
Bob?
thought you were going to say street cat named Desire then.
Yeah, I know, I did too. Just for a little second I did too. Yeah.
Street cat named Bob.
I thought you were going to say...
It's a ginger cat.
His name is Richard Branson.
What?
The homeless guy or something. Nah.
Now, that'd be a story.
Richard Branson, I'm not familiar with it.
No, I was just making out that your character in the story was Richard Branson. Started off as homeless, got a cat, and then eventually owned an airline. Hey, have a squiz at the breakfast menu there, Tim.
Oh, how good.
And order some breakfast.
I have one of everything.
Yeah. It's good to talk to you, Tim. And it's there's always so much to talk about. I
Do
find.
not order one of everything, man.
Can I just have a couple of eggs and some bacon?
Yeah, mate.
Is that all right?
Would you like some hollandaise on that?
No hollandaise.
Okay.
Not a big
couple
fan.
of eggs and some bacon.
Yeah, just some couple of fried
Oh,
eggs
fried? Yep.
and some bacon. Is
Yeah,
that
no worries,
doable?
mate. Yeah, I think we can manage that.
Thanks,
Cool.
man. Yeah, good.
No worries.
So the city comes to life.
Yeah. Funny sitting here and watching the sun come up over the city. The bus depot.
Yeah.